Bitch, listen up. Now, for today's topic, I'm going to have to ask one of y'all to close the door because there may be some little childrens walking by down the hallway. And the topic of conversation is adults only. Okay, everybody. On this episode of Girl Get Your Act Together, I'm here to help you figure out your focus, where you're going, and not worried about where you came from. Some of you out there are wondering whether or not the goal that you've set up for your life is actually something that's, number one, attainable. Number two, is it the right goal? And number three, once you achieve the goal, will it satisfy you as far as what your life's purpose is? So on today's episode of Girl Get Your Act Together, I'm here to help you figure out whether or not you're actually on the right trajectory to achieving your goal, or if you actually need to make a U-turn and pivot and go in a different direction. And in order to do that, you first need to know why you're here. We don't always know why we're here, but that's the number one question. Why am I here? What am I here for? What am I meant to do? How will I achieve it? How long will it take for me to get it done? And once I achieve it, will it fulfill me? And is that my purpose? There's a lot of reasons that we need to figure out what your purpose is sooner rather than later. If God only gives you a couple of years to live on this earth, then you have to think about life being over in the twinkling of an eye. And if life is over in the twinkling of an eye, then you have to, number one, find out very quickly what your purpose is. You may be clouded when it comes to figuring out your purpose. Your view may be clouded because you may not be very, number one, self-aware. Now, self-awareness is something that people don't like to really talk about. A lot of the people who are not self-aware don't like to talk about it. But if you're self-aware, that simply means, do you know who you are? Do you know whose you are? Are you aware of how you move through the world? Are you moving in a space, in a place, in a time, and in a method to where you are doing what is right for you, regardless of the surrounding circumstances? Are you aware of how you fit into every equation in your life? So you may not be the star of the show. You may be the supporting cast member. You may not be the director of the show. You may be the assistant production manager. You may not be the talent in front of the screen. You may be the talent behind the screen. So if you need to be very, very aware of what it is that you have to offer, what it is that you're willing to offer, and how other people view what your talent is that you're offering. Self-awareness is something that comes alive in friendships, in relationships, in professional ventures, as well as your personal life. So let's just take a broader spectrum. Let's just talk about professional life. In your professional life, you're going to be working with colleagues that you may not know very well. You're going to be put into a pig pen with all these other little piglets like yourself. And you're put into a pig pen and you say, hey, be nice to each other. And all of you little piggies, the piggy number 1, 2, and 3, and 4, all of you together are going to make this wonderful product for the company. Well, all of you piggies are put into a pen to work together, but some piggies may not work very well with the other piggies. If the one piggy thinks that it's the star of the show, when it's actually just the producer, then that piggy may not be very self-aware. That piggy may not have a valuable input to what they need to do to produce whatever is their goal. So let me put it better to you this way. If I walk into a room, and let me just give you an example. Now I'm going to tell you a story. Now, I'm very self-aware. I have not always been self-aware. I've been more aware of other people and not as aware of myself and how I mix in a room with other people. At my age I am now, I've become very comfortable and confident in what I have to offer and what I'm willing to offer, okay? Everything that I have to offer, I'm not willing to give. All right, you can't just give it all away. You have to know in what circumstances do other people deserve your blessings. In what circumstances do you need to show and offer everything that you have to give. When it comes to being self-aware, you are self-aware once you know your purpose. Okay? I know my purpose in life is to be a value add to other people. That's it. I chose my profession to be a lawyer, to be a value to other people. And in my legal profession, I use my skill set to give free services to people that are underserved. It's what I'm most passionate about. So if what I'm most passionate about is helping people who are underserved, then I know what my purpose is. That's the broad spectrum of my purpose. My purpose is to be of value to other people who are in the underserved communities, period. Now, the way God puts me in different situations to achieve my purpose matters. And if I remain in certain situations that don't fulfill my purpose or that are not meant to help me fulfill that purpose, it's up to me to be self-aware enough to change my circumstances. Now, in changing your circumstances, it's very important to know your geography. Now, I'm not from Houston, but I live here in this area. And since I'm not from here, I had to be aware of who I was when I came to Houston to see whether or not Houston was gonna fit in line with what I wanted for my life. And the man that I loved lived here. So I was like, okay, well, my purpose is to be a value add to society, but I'm gonna do it in a different location. Now, you can sometimes step out there on faith, and faith could have you going the wrong way. That's when you're not listening, you're not being very discerning. You have to be able to weed out all of what they would call in the legal speak circumstantial evidence. Go on the hard truths, hard facts about yourself. Number one, I have my own mind. Number two, I'm secure. Number three, I'm a bit bossy. Number four, I know a whole lot about a little. Number five, I don't feel threatened by other people no matter what the circumstance is. If I'm aware of all those characteristics that I have, then I have to make sure that whenever I'm in a new environment, that I'm self-aware enough to know that everybody that meets me in my new environment may not like me. They may not like my style. They may not like that I'm so secure. They may not appreciate that I'm not insecure at all. They may not appreciate that I want to offer my legal sense to a situation. They may not appreciate that I look a different way in a package than they do. So if I was self-aware enough to know what I have to offer, then it doesn't really matter what the people in the room feel like I have to offer, because I know what I have to offer. It's kind of like this. If you walk into a room where everybody doesn't like you, and they've all been talking mess about you, kind of like on The Housewives, if you see an episode and you see they're talking a whole bunch of smack about a woman, and she walks into the room and everybody goes like this, and they tighten up. Well, the woman that enters the room is very self-aware of what she's got going on, but she's also aware of her surroundings. It's important that you not only be self-aware, but be aware of everything around you. If you're in the wrong location at the wrong time, you basically are not self-aware. If you are pursuing a goal that doesn't seem to be lining up with making you happy, if you have a purpose in your life, you may achieve your goal, but you may be left feeling unhappy or unfulfilled. So that doesn't necessarily mean that that was your intended purpose. That may not be the maximum level of you fulfilling your dream. Or let's just say you had a goal in mind. If I wanted to be Miss America, then if I wanted to be Miss, well, let me just take that. That's such a whack goal to have. If anybody wants to be Miss America, that's dumb. Let's get a better goal. If I wanted to win the Nobel Peace Prize, or the Nobel Prize for Literature. Let's just take it there. Let's take it academic. If my goal was to win the Nobel Prize for Literature, but I don't have any books that I've written, I've only got a couple of notes. My end goal, say 20 years from now, I would like to be on the Nobel laureate stage, winning the literature prize. But you spent your career writing books that were not Nobel worthy. You know, I've known people that have said, oh, I'm an author. I've written all these books. Hey, I've written all these books. But what you're writing is not something that's a value add to society. When you look at the competition in the Nobel, and I'm using the Nobel Prize winner for a reason. The Nobel Prize for Literature was won by a woman in France who wrote books based on her life experiences from when she was an adolescent all the way through adulthood, from her sexual encounters to her health scares to the loss of friendships, the loss of jobs, the loss of everything, family, every dynamic. She wrote it in real terms. Now, she didn't have the goal of winning the Nobel Prize for Literature. She just had the goal of giving the world something that we could all read so that we could see the humanity in the condition of growing up, what everybody goes through. Now, if I know someone who's been writing books and writing poetry books and writing all these books that don't seem to be tracking anywhere, or whenever they want somebody to have, let's just take, for example, a book club. If you've got a book club, and you got friends that have book clubs and you've been writing books, but for some reason they're never submitting your book for their book club reading, then maybe your book is not exactly what is their genre. It could be that maybe your style of writing is really not their cup of tea. It could be any number of things, but here's the most important thing. Being self-aware is knowing that maybe your book just ain't that good. Sometimes you have to tell yourself the hard truths. Like, you know what? I wrote this book. I've been peddling it everywhere. I took it to all these book launches, these festivals and stuff, but it seems like it's just not really picking up steam. I wonder why it's not picking up steam. My friends have read it. They've all bought their copies. I've been giving away copies to everybody. I've been stepping on the same book, and now I've written a second book. So it's like the secondary to that first book. And it seems like it's hitting the same plateau. I'm not able to get on the New York Times bestseller. I'm not able to get some podcaster to interview me. Nobody's asking me to come read at Barnes and Nobles. No one is inviting me to read at their book clubs. Michelle Obama is not asking me for any literary tips of what is happening. What's happening is that you're not self-aware. Maybe it's not that you shouldn't be a writer. Maybe that the topic that you're writing on is not the genre that will get you to the purpose that you should be writing. Maybe instead of writing about sex, drugs, and rock and roll, maybe you have a better story to tell. So maybe you are a storyteller, but you're not telling the right story. Maybe you're telling the story that you think the people want to hear, instead of doing it like the Nobel Prize winner did and writing what's true to you, true to your essence, true to humanity. See, the way God moves is this. If he gives you a gift and he instills it in you, you have it from your creation. You have it before your heart ever even makes its first beat. So if it's always inside of you and you get a little bit confused, or your circuits get crossed up and your wires get crossed up and you don't really know, should you be writing a sex book? Or should you be writing a self-help book? Or should you be writing a cookbook? Well, you should be writing because that is your gift. Your purpose is to write. What you write determines whether or not you're going to be successful at achieving your goal. If you're self-aware, then you might be aware that, maybe at 50 years old, I don't need to write a sex book, letting everybody know some sex tips. Maybe as a person who only had 2 children, I don't need to write a family book for women who could look to that have 5 or 6 kids. Maybe I don't need to write a book for single women when I'm married. Maybe as a single woman, I don't need to write a marriage relationship book when I'm not married. It's kind of like knowing your value and knowing how to translate your value to the world so that the world can appreciate it and accept it. That is when you're self-aware. If you know your value and you know how to achieve your goal, you're self-aware. But if you keep on knocking your head against the brick wall over and over and over and over, wondering why your book ain't selling, you're wondering why nobody's talking about your book on their podcast, it's because your book is not what the world wants. You're not self-aware enough to know that, maybe my writing is great, but maybe I'm just writing the wrong stuff. And if no one can tell you, let me give you an example. Years ago, I knew someone who was writing books feverishly, said, I'm a writer. Telling everyone you're a writer is great. Then when you print your book, and if I read the book and it's got a lot of errors in the book, then I'm thinking, okay, the person's a writer. Maybe they need an editor. What it tells me is that maybe the person who wrote the book is not very self-aware, so self-absorbed instead of self-aware that they don't think that anyone has the ability to adequately edit their book, their masterpiece. We all have those prized things. Listen, I made a scrapbook that was great, and I thought it was lovely and wonderful, and I wanted to get someone else's opinion. What do you think I should do with page 5? Okay, if they tell me what I should do with page 5, I'm probably going to take their advice and see whether or not it's something that's viable or not. And more than likely, I'll take the advice and I'll use it. If you're self-aware, you have no problem getting advice from other people. It doesn't make you feel less than just because somebody's telling you that your greatest work is not that great. If you can hear somebody tell you that, you know what, I like your braids, but the blonde is a little too blonde. Maybe you need to tone it down. Put a little bit more brown in there. Like, oh, okay, that's a thought. You don't have to do it. But then if you're able to receive the criticism, and if you're able to receive it without feeling some type of way about or making you feel insecure about yourself, then you have become self-aware. If you are in a circumstance in your life where you feel like your goal keeps on, the way to meet your goal keeps on being pushed further and further back, or the closer that you get to your dream, you're not as happy, then you have to think about, what does God have in store for you in the future? If you're in a circumstance where you feel like everything is against you, everyone is against you, that the powers and forces are working against you actively. And in some situations, that's happening. It's happened to me in a lot of situations. I was wrapped up in a situation for the last, year and a half with where I could easily think, well, maybe this just isn't for me. Well, maybe it's just not good. Maybe I just need to just change my mind. When the reality was, I only needed to change my geographic location. Sometimes a minor movement can change your entire life. If I had stayed put in one situation that I was in that was giving me a headache and stress, let me tell you something. There is nothing worse than a demon that is in somebody else causing their demonic powers to be placed upon you. When there's a demon in somebody else that's squarely focused on destroying your life, you can feel all the demonness come from it. But the reality is this: when you're self-aware and you're secure and your attitude is positive and you know that you're a child of God, it doesn't really matter what anybody else has to say about you. It doesn't matter how many times they try to block your blessing, because your job is to continue to pursue your blessing. You have to continue to pursue what God has intended for you. If you let some monkey stop your blessing, I'm saying monkey because you can't let one monkey don't stop no show. Okay? The show must go on. You might have 20 monkeys jumping on your back trying to hold you back. A whole bunch of crabs in the barrel. It may be the person at the top of the barrel that's the chief of the barrel trying to push everybody down just so they can let the light shine on them more. That happens. And it always, I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to try to use it to make it to where you can all appreciate it. So I know what I had a goal for achieving something. I said, I'm going to give myself 1 year. If this situation doesn't change, then I know after 1 year, I've given all I could. I've done all I had. My attitude was great. I did not let the powers that be affect me. I did not let them make me stop wanting to do more, or stop striving to be better, or stop trying to give value to the people abroad. But if you constantly have people that are not wanting you to shine, then you have to decide, where do you want your light to be exposed? If somebody tries to put a rock on top of a flashlight, the light will still find a way to shine through the cracks, okay? If you have concrete, if you have a brand new sidewalk and 10 weeks later, you may see a weed growing up through the cracks in the sidewalk, you're wondering, there's no water, there's no soil, there's only concrete. The concrete was laid down with the pavers to cover up the dirt. Before they lay down a sidewalk, you have to do a couple of things. Number one, you have to dig up all the grass and all the dirt and all the debris. Then you have to level out everything by stomping it down, flattening it out. After you flatten it out, then you have to put some weed killer down, some powdery weed killer. After you put the weed killer down, then you have to put this plastic vinyl overlay on top of it to ensure that nothing grows out of that fertile soil that you have just stomped down and put the weed killer on and put the grass killer on, that you put the vinyl top on top of. You have to make sure nothing can get to the light, that no light can come through, no water can come in, and no dirt can create soil. So when they lay down all of that concrete on that sidewalk, and then 10 weeks later, you see a weed that has figured out a way to grow, that's you. You're the weed. All of the circumstances around you, all of the haters around you, all of the people that try to stomp out your dreams, all the people that try to flatten out all of your goals, everybody that laid the vinyl over your vision, all of the naysayers, all the people that walked across the pavement that was built on top of you to ensure that you would not be able to see the light of day. Well, God always has a bigger plan for the weed. The weed grows where it's not supposed to grow. Your job is to be the weed. Your job is to say, I can grow without light. I can grow without soil. I can grow in the midst of a concrete barrier meant to keep me down. I can go through the vinyl overlay. I can grow through every obstacle that's come across in my life because God will shine his light on even the deepest, darkest crevice. So all you have to do is look up and stay focused on your goal. Fulfill your purpose and become self-aware that what surrounds you should not be what confounds you into a life where you are living with an unfulfilled purpose. The only way for you to be able to achieve your purpose is to make sure that you have your eyes fixed on the Creator, for whom all light, dirt, water, and your circumstances flow. If you focus and deviate, if you start looking to the left, then the weed can't grow up through the cracks. If you start looking to the right, you might end up going down. What happens if you are that weed that is ever growing like the ivy vine? You're going to always be reaching up and onward. But you must be self-aware that if you are in the wrong geographic location, if you have the wrong spiritual attitude, if you have the wrong surrounding friends or naysayers, if you're listening to the wrong people, if you're majoring in the minor, if you're so busy worried about blocking somebody else's blessing, hoping they don't win something, all that's going to happen is they're going to win and you're going to be looking at their name up on in lights and saying, what happened to me? You don't want to look up and see somebody else's name in lights. No, you want to be that weed that grows up through the concrete, because the weed that grows up through the concrete, guess what we know about that weed? That weed survived. That weed thrived, had stick-to-itness, and had purpose. The purpose of the weed was to grow and stretch up to the heavens. So it does not matter if somebody pours concrete all over your dreams. It doesn't matter if they start stamping out and leveling out and flattening out all of your goals. It doesn't matter if they've gotten the concrete mixer saying, okay, this is laid solid foundation. We're going to build a house on top of her goals. We're going to build a house on top of his dreams. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Foundations crack all the time. The reason that foundations crack is because the soil underneath the foundation is shifting. Okay? If the soil shifts, that means there's movement. So it doesn't matter if somebody built a house on top of your goal. You can shift that foundation and creep up like a weed, and then you can bloom. Because we all know that at the end of the weed, if you drop the seeds from a weed down, it will grow. Be the weed that will sprout up and grow. Don't let anybody knock your hustle. Don't let anybody tell you what you can't do. Don't stay too long in a bad situation. The longer you stay in a bad situation and fail to pivot, you're going to watch your dreams walk out the door. You're going to become despondent, depressed, dejected, and you're going to feel like you don't have anything to offer. And then you're going to start believing the haters. You're going to start comparing yourself and playing the comparison game. Instead of you just turning your head and pivoting and going to the left, you may just start looking down. Or you may just stop altogether. But whatever it is in your life, you must make sure that you pivot before it's too late. Be the weed. Grow and grow and grow and let God grow you into your purpose. Be the weed that grows in concrete. Now, before I go, I want to make sure you all understand. You can't just think up what your purpose is. Only the Creator gives you your purpose. It's revealed to you in a unique and unrepeatable fashion. So you got to be self-aware and in tune to what God has for you. If you're not in tune to his alignment for your life, then you're not going to be able to receive the blessing. You're not going to receive the message. It's like having the phone ringing. Is God trying to call you? And when you answer the phone, you say hello and hang up immediately. But when you say hello and say, this is God, turn left, you're hitting a brick wall. All you need to say is, okay, thank you, God. Can I call you back later? I'm about to turn left. Click. Don't get on the bed. This is God. Stop writing that stupid book. It's dumb. Do something else. You don't hang up on God when he says that. No, you don't. But if God says, hello, Nyanza. See, when God talks to me, it's kind of a woman's voice. Hello, Nyanza. Here's what I have for you today. Live your best life. Have a great attitude. Stick to your goals. And remember, I'm watching. All I want to say, bless me, bless me, bless me, God, indeed. Death has been defeated. It's my victory. So you want to make sure that you stay focused on God, okay? If you start focusing on everybody else, Instagram purpose, Facebook purpose, you're not going to achieve your goals. If you got a whack goal, if you're a shitty writer, stop writing a book. Stop writing. If somebody has told you that you're great, make sure it ain't your mama. If it's your mama telling you that you're wonderful, she's lying. She doesn't want to know that she produced somebody who's a non-writer trying to write. If you're a non-singer trying to sing and your mama told you could sing, don't believe her either. You need to go to the church choir and say, can I get a leading role? If they say no, that means you can't sing. If they say, here's the microphone, you got a future. And so you have to be aware that everybody around you, they mean well for you sometimes, but sometimes they just want to see you fail. Sometimes people are happy to see you fail. Have you ever noticed a person that you haven't seen in a while, they heard that something went bad for you on Facebook? Oh, girl, I heard about so-and-so girl. Ooh, that's too bad. They got a little bit of glint in there. I'm kind of happy about your failure because your failure means that I'm winning. No, that's not what it means. Somebody else's loss does not mean you gain. All it means is they're trying and you're not. Every failure, like I say, every failure is a setback for a setup for a comeback. I'm always trying to set up for a comeback. And honestly, I don't really have many things left to come back from. My goals are pretty much in alignment. And when you get that way with God and when you get that way with yourself and you're aware of what you have to offer and what you're willing to give and what you're willing to put up and what you're not willing to put up with, if you know everything about you, what makes you, what makes you great, what makes you wonderful, what makes you the kind of person that other people want to look to, if you can be an example to other people, in one aspect of your life, you're successful. If somebody can look at you and say, I like the way she's doing that. How did you do that? Or if you can be a value add and share your gifts with the world, then you're successful. Success is not about the money. No, it can be if your goal is to be the best banker in the world. But my goal is just to be the best person that I can be. And I know that God, the creator, will make sure that everything in my life lines up by me fulfilling my purpose. If my purpose is to help a lot of people, then God's going to make sure I have a great time doing it. And he's going to find the people for me to help. And it doesn't bother. Listen, I gave away $114,000 worth of legal business where I could have charged for. I could have bought a brand new car, but I felt like my life is more fulfilled by giving away legal services instead of charging for them for people who are underserved, giving them things that they need. If you're out there baking cookies, maybe some people need some diet cookies. But if you got something that you need to give, if you're not giving to the world, instead of you thinking about your tithing 10%, why don't you think about tithing 10% of what you have to give? Not money, 10% of what you do in your professional life. Tithe your professional skill. If you can tithe your professional skill, I'm not talking about you whack people out there that don't really have professional skills that just want to help people be failures. I'm talking about you people that are kings of the industry, titans of your profession. If you can tithe 10% of your professional acumen, then I'll say you're doing okay. That could be the goal. Because you know what? Whatever your skill set is, God is going to make sure you hone your skills in the right space and in the right time to be value add for his children. God wants you to help other children of God out there. He also wants you to help some demons out. He wants you to show the demons that but God, everything is okay. Everything is okay. And if you're out there being a value to other people to make you live a better life, it will. It'll keep your cholesterol down when you're happier. Your sex life will be better. Your social life will be better. Your academic life will be better. You'll be a happier person. Listen, your whole life will be better. The more you give to other people, the more fulfilled you will be. The less giving you are, like Ebenezer Scrooge. Remember the ghosts of Christmas past, the Christmas present, and Christmas future. If you're an Ebenezer Scrooge and all you're doing is counting your money, then your past is looking like your whack present and you're not going to have a future. So if you're looking at your life and you have a lot of things to give, figure out what you can do to be a value add to somebody else's life. There's always somebody that's doing worse than you. There's always somebody that needs a helping hand from you. There's always that same person who is too prideful or too sad to ask for help. So your job as the person who can help is not to make them forced into asking for help. A lot of people can't ask for help. You have to see the need and fill the need without being asked to fulfill the need. Take the person who's going to the soup kitchen asking for a handout of soup. Do you think they wanted to wake up in the morning hungry? Do you think they wanted to get laid off from their job? Do you think they wanted to be begging for free soup from the soup kitchen? No. So when you get up and you have something to eat and you can DoorDash your breakfast, you can go by Starbucks on the way to work, you got food at your job waiting for you. Maybe when you go down to the soup kitchen, maybe you should offer the food and go get people off the street and bring them inside and say you're there to help serve them. Maybe if you live a life of service, God will figure out a better way to serve you in fulfilling your purpose. And that's all I have for you today. So if you're out there getting your act together, don't forget the people who don't always have it together. Figure out how you can help someone else get their act together. I'll see you next time. For those of you women out there, I've been in this situation. Don't be embarrassed. It could happen to you.